Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses as we continue with Part 7, Number 3 and Number 7, from Facing the Sphinx by Marie L. Farrington. Chapter 6, Number 3 and Number 7. Let no man judge you for your observance of the seventh day and the day of the new moon, which are a shadow of things to come. St. Paul. Number 3 and Number 7. As stated before, the first gods were all weather gods, or rather personifications of air or ether. We find the original ideal symbolized in Brahma, Zeus, Huracan, Gukumats, Quetzalcoatl, and even in the Spirit of God brooding over the waters in the initial chapter of Genesis. As Kasa is the becoming visible or apparent, Akasa is the invisible or unapparent. But in this elemental stage, the unapparent is not God, it is only atmospherical. Ether is represented by the cone as the fifth sign in the diagram, seen here, in which the square signifies earth, the circle, water, heaven as the water above, the pyramid or triangle, fire, the crescent, air, and the cone ether, which as fifth was once the quintessence of the elements. The full number of these is 7 in India, Egypt, Britain, and other countries. The 7 elements from which came the 7 spirits of mythology are identified by the British bardas as earth, water, fire, air, ether or vapor blossom, the seminal principle, and the wind of purpose, or the ghost. A 6th element was known among the Hindus as Balarama, the representation of masculine virility. Bala denotes force considered as a 6th form or mode of manifestation. It is the innate strength of the male, the semen virile. This is the 6th element, the fructifying principle of the Druids named Blossom. The 7th was the soul and summit of the rest. Elementary types or gods were founded on the elements, and they are symbols of the elements which were typified. Typology. There are 7 properties in nature: matter, cohesion, fluxion, coagulation, accumulation, station, and division. But it is Old Egypt that affords us a test type for the unity of origin in mythology as portrayed in the Great Mother, the boundless, limitless, primordial chaos, the genitrix of all, and her 7 sons. The celebrated writer and occultist Eliphas Levi, Yebe Louis Constant, said that the Sefer Jezira, the Zohar and the Apocalypse of St. John are the masterpieces of the occult sciences. He might have added, so far as the Jewish scriptures are concerned, for there are deeper works extant, though it must be admitted that the works just mentioned above contain far greater significance than words, and that while in numbers they are exact, the expressions used throughout are poetical. But to be able to appreciate their true merit, the student has to be conversant with the meaning of the terms and symbols in which the ideas are rendered. To master those works, he will have to thoroughly understand the value in all their different aspects of the names of gods, angels, patriarchs, etc., as given in the Jewish Bible, besides their mathematical or geometrical value and their relations to objective universe. Thus, the sacred books of the ancients, the Vedas, the Popol Vuh, the Zend-Avesta, the Book of the Dead, the Chaldean tablets, Hesiod's Theogony, and others at which our learned men were either sneering or were admiring their simplicity, become the many-sided sphinxes of archaic ages. Many ponder over their ambiguous texts, but few are the Oedipuses who solve the riddle. It is generally admitted that number 3 is the number par excellence. It is the male number, and as the triangle is the symbol for light and the emblem of the concealed one. Seen here, it is the first of the odd numbers, and it is also the first of the geometrical figures. Numberless combinations can be applied to it, and none has rendered them more thoroughly than Regan in his Cours interprétatif de initiation, that is, so far as the exoteric significance is concerned. In the Hindu, symbolism of numera is the esoteric interpretation, is expounded for the benefit of those who can fathom it. The occult properties of the 3 equal lines or sides of the triangle inspired Regan with the true basis of his studies on the subject, and also with the idea of establishing his famous society of the Trinosophists, or fellows who study 3 sciences, which is a great improvement upon the ordinary way of conferring Masonic degrees. The first line of the triangle offered to the apprentice for study, says the founder, is the mineral kingdom, symbolized by Tubal Cain. The second side, on which the companion has to meditate, is the vegetable kingdom, represented by Shibboleth. In this kingdom begins the generation of bones, This is why the letter G is unfolded radiant before the eyes of the adept. The third side is left to the master mason, who has to complete his education by the study of the animal kingdom. It is symbolized by Mauban, son of putrefaction. With the Pythagoreans, the origin of differentiation, of contrasts and discord, in fact, the beginning of matter and therefore of evil, was all traceable to the binary. Hence, even numbers were considered the sum total of all that is unlucky and devilish. Number one alone was the synthesis of harmony and of all that is good, because no discord can exist where there is only one. But the ternary is, verily, the mysterious number par excellence. Seen here, it is essentially spiritual, though under one of its phases it becomes the emblem of the principle underlying the formation of physical or animal bodies. The Kabbalah identifies the primordial trinity with the three true witnesses who testify to the nature of the Infinite One. They are the three upper Sephiroth, as in verse 1152 of the Greater Holy Assembly. We have learned that there were 10 companions who entered into the Sod, mystery, and that only 7 came forth. Leo de Modena, an Orthodox Jew, wondered at the possibility of forgiving those who printed the Kabbalistic works, as the doctrine of the triad contained in them had led many Jews to abandon the faith of their fathers and become Christians. What is more deplorable still is that what is called the civilized world is groaning under the iron yoke of theology founded upon the empty shadows of the same great truths. The sooner symbolism will be taught publicly, the better for the Christian nations. 3 distinct representations of the universe under 3 different aspects become impressed upon our mind by the leading philosophical systems. 1. The pre-existing evolving from the ever-existing. 2. And the phenomenal world, the manifested universe. 3. Which is only the shadow and reflection of its prototype, and consequently a mere illusion, though it seems real enough to those who are in it. Such is the origin of the mythical trinity, whose source is to be found in the central eternal germ of the Brahminical egg, or the unity. Among the ancient relics of old Egypt, we find the infant Horus, seated in the decans of the ram, holding the whip of rule in his left hand and the starry triangle in his right, and Proclus employing the same imagery as a figure of speech when he says, "The celestial triangle is connective of all generation, being proximate to the ram." But the typological trinity was mother, son, and pubescent male. The mother, the genitrix, was chaos, the boundless space, the pre-existing universe. Her child was the manifested world, and the two were evolved from the ever-existing. Such was the archaic ideal, the first conception of the mythical trinity. We read in the Litany of Ra, "Thou commandest the Osirified deceased to be like Kuti, the brilliant triangle which appears in the shining place." Thus, typology, the dead rose on the horizon of the resurrection. Like the sun in the sign of the vernal equinox, when that was the ram in the shape of the triangle, as an image of the Trinity in unity. The triple Horus was the threefold sun, which was unified once a year at the time and at the place of the spring equinox. There is a form of him as the child crowned with a triple crown of reed and called the Lord of the world. It was he who divided the upper from the lower heaven, as stated in Ephesians 14, "For he is our peace, who hath made both one and hath broken the middle wall of partition between us." From the same idea originated the dividing wall of the second court of the Temple of Jerusalem. Thus the human triad was copied from the celestial, as the visible universe is an image of its invisible pattern. Among the quiches we find again the same thought, as illustrated in Huracan, or voice of thunder, lightning and thunderbolt, the triad contained in the heart of heaven, which sprung out of that primitive religious sentiment which clothed the uncomprehended powers of nature with the attributes of divinity. The mystery contained in the ancient wisdom has to be unfolded in numbers rather than in geometrical figures or letters, though the figure Lau is not only indicated by the triangle, but also by the mystic Aum of the Hindus and the of the Jews. From Plutarch, we learn that the Egyptians held the divine nature to consist of 3, and this trinity was typified by the triangle, the base thereof being feminine, the perpendicular masculine, and the subtense the product of both. They also considered Osiris as the first cause, or the sun, Isis as the recipient, or the moon, and Horus as the child, or effect. In Lucian's auction, there is a Pythagorean dialogue in which the great philosopher asks, "How do you reckon?" It is answered, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then says the wise Greek, "Do you not see that in what you conceive 4 there are 10, a perfect triangle and our oath?" In the Hebrew Sheba, the oath is identical with number 7, and taking an oath was synonymous with to 7, though the Greek oath was by 3 am I overthrown. In the Hebraic secret works, the last 3 Sephiroth constitute the natural world, or nature in its essence, and in its active principle they embody the symbolism of the generative element of all that is. In the 3 tetragrammatic forms, which give 12 letters, is found the trinity of the tetragram, the trinity in unity, proceeding from the concealed unity and expressed in the 13 divisions of the beard of Macroprosopus, or the Kabbalistical glyph, synthesizing unity. In Rome were, we may say, amalgamated the versions of the Egyptian, Hebrew, Greek, and Mithraic primitive myths, and reissued as dogmas of a new religion. The mother, the archaic genitrix of the Great Bear, or of Chaos, and her son holding the foremost position until about the 13th century of our era, when God the Father succeeded in displacing the Virgin of the world, but without despoiling her of her popularity. For she came from herself to occupy a position belonging to her by right, and her son was born but not begotten. Thus, in the Greek iconography to the triangle of Horus, the nimbus or glory of the god is added, and the Holy Ghost of the Middle Age also wears the triangular aureole. In a fresco of the Cathedral of Auxerre, the god holds a book in his left hand, and with his right hand he makes the sign of the Trinity in the orthodox way of the Catholic Church, the thumb and 2 forefingers being uplifted and the other 2 closed. Such is the origin of the papal blessing bestowed upon the people by the bishops of the Romish Church, and the meaning of the ring they wear on their middle finger is part of the mystery. It is the circle which contains the 3, or Trinity. Though the triangle, the emblem of the concealed one, has become the symbol of God the Father among Christians, Mary, the genitrix, the Great Mother, the exalted Sophia of the Gnostics, has maintained her prominent position with her child Horus, or the Messiah. The primitive conception of the Trinity was also perpetuated by the ancients in the 3rd sign of the zodiac, Gemini, the embodiment of the dual deity as rendered by the Kabbalists, Sephira, Adam Kadmon, and by the Hindus as the androgyne Brahma, the one who becomes 2. The 2 triangles are generally called Solomon's seal, seen here, and as 6 they denote the union of the 2 sexes. But if we combine the triangle with the quaternary, or light and life, seen here, we have the septenary man, the heavenly man, or Microprosopus, who is also called the manifested Logos. Among the ancients, number 7, or the triangle in the square, or again 2 interlaced triangles, was a symbol of deep import. Seen here, Sivek was synonymous with 7, and the Hebrew deity Jehovah was the god of the 7 letters. Mysteries in Egypt and India were celebrated, during which the utterance of the 7 vowels was an important feature. The Greek Zeus, the father of all living, had his name beginning with a double 7, thus Z, and the initial letter for I live in the Greek language is a Z or double 7. One need not wonder then, because 7 should have been adopted as the synthesis of the union of terrestrial man with his celestial prototype. Under this aspect, it becomes the emblem of eternal life. Moreover, Zeus means ether, and the Aryan Diaus, which is also the Latin Deus, can be rendered by day or light, while the German Gott and the English God are both derived from the Hebrew Yod, the phallic hook. The 7 vowels as printed by Bunsen are A, E, E, I, O, O, U. They are contained potentially in the A, I, U of the Egyptians and Copts, and expressed by the words to come and to go, and are an emblem of duality. The I, U, or A of the beginning and O of the end mean also was, it, and to be. Thus, the personified duad linked with the triad became a combination of a 3-fold one with a 7-fold manifestation, as we find it illustrated in the 7 Sephiroth, 7 Rishis, 7 spirits or 7 breaths, etc. Number 7 was prominent in astronomy and most sacred to the Jews from antiquity on account of its relation to the moon, our satellite. Their Sabbath or 7th day originated from the 4-fold number 7 being contained in the 28 days of the lunar month each septenary portion thereof being typified by 1/4 of the moon. And on the seventh day Elohim ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And Elohim blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which Elohim created and made. Genesis chapter 2. This passage, frequently quoted as authority for keeping the Sabbath or seventh day, does not refer here to days but cycles of obscuration or repose and of manifestation or activity. Hence, the creator of the Bible is not the universal unless blended with Ein Sof, called also microprosopus or non-being, but he is one of the septenaries of the universal septenate. Seen here, the Kabbalah teaches that the words fiat lux, Genesis chapter 1, refer to the formation and evolution of the Sephiroth, and not to light as opposed to darkness. Rabbi Simeon says, O companions, man as an emanation was both man and woman, Adam Kadmon, verily, and this is the sense of the words, let there be light, and it was light, and this is the twofold man, Zohar. In its unity, the light of the unmanifested Logos is the primordial light, the highest or seventh principle emphasized by the central point of the interlaced triangles, seen here, but as the collective Logos, or lower Sephiroth, it is 7. The latter is also symbolized by the hexagon or 6 limbs of the microprosopus, the lesser face, with Malkuth, the bride of the Christian Kabbalists, as the 7th, or our earth. Therefore, the first triangle of the Pythagorean triad corresponds to the tetragrammaton, which is at the head of the 7 lower Sephiroth, or collective Logos. The Zohar explains that the primordial elements, the trinity of fire, air, and water, seen here, the 4 cardinal points seen here, and all the voices of nature form collectively the word, the voice of the will, or the Logos. Hence it is said that the tetragrammaton is the 3 made 4, and the 4 made 3, and that it is represented on this earth by his 7 companions or eyes, the 7 eyes of the Lord. The origin and significance of numbers is closely linked with the 7 stars of Ursa Major. 7 was not only a perfect number, but also a lucky number, conveying an idea of abundance, as its Egyptian name Hept meant plenty. It was also the image of the revolution of time, for Pythagoras tells us that the 2 bears were the 2 hands of the Great Mother, whose names, Keb and Teb, meant the hand and the finger, as she supplied the pointer hand to the celestial horologe of time. They were also dual in this sense that they typified the mother or she-bear and her son or progeny. The Great Bear was also identical with the genitrix Rhea, consort of Cronus, and with the earlier personification of the same glyph under the name of Typhon and Sivek, her son. These 2 were Kep the mother and Keb the child, or the 7 companions. Kep means the hand, and Tai is 2 or twin, and Kepti is both hands, or number 7. In this case, the left or lower hand is feminine, and the right or upper one is masculine. Wherever and whenever we find number 7 mentioned in the sacred ancient books, we may rely upon a double sense being attached to the sentence. Hence, when we read in the Bible that Moses married one of the 7 daughters of his father-in-law Jethro, and we become aware that her name, Zipporah, reads the Shining One, we may be assured that no real marriage in the sense we attach to the word took place, but that Moses was initiated by Jethro into the mysteries of occult sciences, and that solely on that account he was the son of his initiator. It is a phraseology commonly employed between members of the same brotherhood. We may also mention that the well by which Moses sat down and rested in his flight symbolized a well of knowledge. Astronomically and geologically, number 7 is also connected with the constellation of the Pleiades, and historically with the Grecian myth relating to the 7 daughters of Atlas, who were Maia, Electra, Taygeta, Asterope, Merope, Alcyone, and Selene. They are called the Atlantides because they represent the 7 sub-races of the lost continent, so frequently referred to by the Egyptians, the Quiches, and the Mayas. After the submersion of the lands occupied by the races they personify, they were assigned a place in the heavens. Occultism attributes to them an influence of high import, asserting that they rule the destinies of nations according to the laws of cause and effect, better known now under the name of karmic law. It is even hinted that we are now paying the iniquities committed by us while imprisoned in titanic bodies during the 4th race period, for the continents of Lemuria and Atlantis are combined and personified in the allegory of Atlas. In natural genesis, as well as in esotericism, both constellations of the Great Bear and the Pleiades hold a foremost position. The former as the genitrix, the Great Mother and her 7 sons, identical with the 7 rishis, 7 planetary spirits, 7 Sephiroth, 7 Amshaspans, 7 companions, 7 Kabiri, 7 principles of man, 7 cosmic principles, etc., symbolizes the evolving principle of the cosmic forces and is also identical with the lower Sephiroth. While the Pleiades are the sidereal septonate, born from the first manifested side of the upper triangle, also known as the concealed. Seen here, this manifested side is Taurus, the symbol of 1, the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, which is Aleph, the Phoenician and Hebrew Kaf. Here we find the motive that induced the Jews to worship the calf in the desert. It was the emblem of duality, the calf being of either sex. The Pleiades are the central group of the system of sidereal symbology in esotericism, and in astronomy they are the central point around which our universe revolves. The center star, Alcyone, is considered as the nucleus into which are focused all the forces which are working incessantly under the cosmic laws of our present Manvantara. Therefore, in astronomical symbolism, the Pleiades, or the circle with the starry cross on its face, hold the most prominent place, and in occultism they are attributed a marked influence upon our destinies. Though the star Alcyone is a powerful sun, 12,000 times superior to our yellow sun in volume and brilliancy, yet with the naked eye it seems unimportant and ordinary, and we must confess that the ancients must have been endowed with the cyclopean eye, or must have possessed telescopes in order to recognize and appreciate the important part assumed by the central star of the constellation, Pleiades. We are told by occultists that man is a septenary being endowed with 7 principles, and that every globe, our Earth included, belongs to a septenary chain of worlds of which only one is visible, and that every one of them is, was, or will be man-bearing, though they may not be gotten up upon the pattern of our present human races. For the law of nature is uniformity and diversity. The 7 cosmic principles are earth or matter, vivifying universal spirit, astral or cosmic atmosphere, cosmic will, astral light or universal illusion, universal mind and latent spirit. The 7 principles in man are the body, the life principle, the astral body, the animal soul or will, the human soul or mind, the spiritual soul, and the divine spirit. Each one of those principles represents a plane of consciousness and is analogous to the state and sense corresponding to it. We have now 5 senses. We are in the 5th root race, and we are just developing the human soul or mind. We have still to acquire 2 more senses, and when we possess 7 senses, we will have reached the goal of human attainment on this earth. Occultists claim likewise that until the highest planetary spirits evolve a higher stage of perfection, which will allow them to assimilate themselves to the essence of worlds lying beyond our own solar system, they will remain in ignorance of a plane of consciousness which is now forbidden ground on account of the law of analogy. In the Chaldean tablets there is a description of the 7 kings of Edom, who were sexless. Now it is claimed that Esau was their father, and that they personify the attempts at producing a perfect physical man, the pre-Adamic races referred to in the Quiche and Toltec manuscripts. They are left out of calculation in Genesis because they impersonate the shadowy 7 primordial sub-races and refer to the first 7 kings of Edom. But Esau, Jacob's son, is typifying the race which stands for them between the 4th and the 5th. In the Grecian allegory of Niobe, the mother of 7 sons and 7 daughters, we find again a myth perpetuating the history of continents, races, and climatic changes. Niobe is the daughter of one of the Pleiades or Atlantides, and consequently a granddaughter of Atlas, and as such she typifies the last generations of the doomed continent. We say doomed because it is claimed by occultists that the sons of Will and Yoga of the 3rd race became indignant at the vices of the Atlanteans, and that Niobe's children were annihilated by Latona's children Apollo and Diana, who, as personifications of the sun and the moon, are intended to convey the idea of the geological and climatic changes due to the influence they exercise upon the Earth's axis. The same version of the myth of the Hyades sisters of the Pleiades, can be obtained if following closely the run of rounds, root races, and sub-races. Apollo is the sun. He is the god of the seers and the patron of the mysterious number 7, for he was born on the 7th of the month. And the swans of Majorca celebrated that event by swimming 7 times around Delos. The swan is a symbol of duality, typifying either air and water or fire and water if applied to elements. But it is also an emblem of the union of spirit with matter. Astronomically, Apollo is given 7 chord to his lyre. He is represented with the circle of the 7 rays of the sun, and his name is linked with the 7 forces of nature. Jehovah, the Hu, of the Kabbalah, the deity of the 7 vowels, became under the compound name of Yahweh Sabaoth, the god of the 7 planets. Each planet corresponded to one of the 7 vowels and to one of the 7 notes of the scale. Moreover, each day of the week was dedicated to one of the 7 vowels and to one of the planets. In the 7 notes of the scale and the orbit lines of the planet, the distribution was as follows: Ut Ordu Mercury, Re Venus, Mi Sun, Fa Mars, Sol Jupiter, La Saturn, in making the music of the spheres. Dion Cassio declares that the names given to the days of the week had for an object to express, under a philosophical form, the occult relations existing between the divisions of time and the order of the stars that regulated its course, uniting besides, under the same mathematical conception, the harmonies of the celestial movements with the harmonious intervals of musical tones. Such is the origin of the names given by the archaic races to the days of the week. The Germans, however, preferred the names of their own gods to those of the planetary deities. In Revelation, the repetition of number 7 occurs constantly. There are 7 churches. The book is sealed with 7 seals. And when he had opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. And I saw the 7 angels which stood before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. Chapter 8, and again in chapter 11, and the 7th angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven saying, The kingdoms of the world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. In chapter 13, a beast riseth out of the sea with 7 heads and 10 horns, to whom the dragon giveth his power. Chapter 15 describes the 7 angels with the 7 last plagues and the 7 vials full of the wrath of God. Why are Christians so blind as not to see that the occult symbolism underlying the book of Revelation is a science which they have to master before they can pretend to understand it? The deep occult meaning which underlies the zodiacal sign of Virgo Scorpio is well known among mystics. All the Kabbalists and Hermetists call the astral light the heavenly or celestial virgin. Therefore, Virgo, as the 6th sign of the zodiacal divisions, is befittingly represented by the 2 triangles. The point or crown, as the unity, is the 7th because there are 7 principles diffused in every unity. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe and comment, and if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.